This is I'm giving you 401 TE transactional highlights today. I think you're going to enjoy this because it's lots of fun. The one that Jonathan's working on is a 401 TE, and this is what the transactional looks like. Now this cover in the back has got the gears in there. See, basically your torque converter is driving the gear, this gear in the back, and it's driving another gear that's going to your differential and all that. And, so let's see all these pressure ports that you can check on this particular mock-up of this one here. This is one that I pulled offline. That comes from the cooler and this kind of thing. There's your kick down band adjusting screw. Now like I say, there's several different versions of this transmission, and so basically I'm just giving you some highlights on it. This is an older style transmission range sensor that's, this is probably one of the earliest versions of this transmission out there and all that. This is a sort of a cutaway of what it looks like from the top. You can see the differential right here, and basically you got the torque converter and the stator. See how you got your turbine, your stator and all that, and they're driving this. And they don't really have it where you can see it good, but the planetary is here, and then up in here is a transmission range thing. And that particular one, that was the one that I got that cutaway on, looks like it's got an oil filter on it, but I just wanted to throw an image up there. That's the pump. And how many different kind of transmission oil pumps are there? Do you remember? Three different kinds. That's good. And you remember what they are? Gerotor.
I forgot the others.
Vane. And crescent. This is a crescent. See the crescent there? That's what that deal's all about. Basically, the gear around the outside goes around the outside, and the crescent inside. This one here is vaguely similar to the gerotor, except it's typically got more teeth and all. And there it is taken apart, that kind of thing. There's your valve body, which Jonathan is really familiar with the valve body. And so here we got this, the filter down there. And just for future reference, we're going to be bouncing out. You know what that is? Who knows what that is?
Number 24.
That's number 24, isn't it?
Yep.
And this thing right here, there's a solenoid pack. I mean, like I say, these are sort of generic pictures, but they're built around this transmission and all that. So I'd have something on both sides of the page pretty much. That little thing there goes across your rooster comb when you're putting it in gear. Click, 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 click. You know, this right here reacts against that. And there's your separator plate. And you need to make sure you know where the balls go in that thing when you're doing all that. But right here is a rear analysis assembly for the park pawl, I believe. There's your planetary gears in there. These aren't really great pictures, but the splines on the front carrier are heated or induction heat treated, and it may look like the front carrier is heat damaged, but that's a normal result of heat treating, so you don't need to interpret the heat treatment marks as damage. Sometimes you'll see gears and stuff that have turned blue because they've been really hot. I saw one time I pulled a thermostat out of a Ford Tempo that had been so hot that it had turned blue like you had blued a gun barrel, and it was just really, really hot. But anyway, when it changes color like that, if it's heat treating that's making it do that, then you don't need to be sweating bullets about that. What's she want now? Hello, this is Richard. Hey. Cool. All right, then we'll be glad I get Jonathan to put that in this afternoon. It is going to be, well, no, it's not going to be a work order. I got to get you a, let's do it on the supply, because it's not much money anyway. Okay? All right. All right. Right here, your valve body will be here at 2, by the way. You should have it be able to go. The rear carrier's got a 5-pinion design. What does that mean? What does it mean for it to have 5 pinions?
It has 5 of those pinions.
5 of the little gears. You got, how many, what are the 3 parts of this kind of gear? Planetary gear set's got what? Got 3 parts, primary parts. 3 primary parts to a planetary gear set. What are they?
The ring gear.
Ring gear's one.
Sun
Good,
gear.
good answer. Sun gear.
Helical.
And, well, the helical's the kind of gear, but we've got planet pinions. You got the, what gear are we in when we're holding the pinion carrier? When you're holding the pinion carrier, what's going to happen? If I hold the pinion carrier and I drive the sun gear, what's the ring gear going to do? Opposite direction. That's reverse, guys. okay? That's why you're in class. Now, if I ask you that again, I don't want everybody sitting here going, you know, that's just really dreadful, you know. All right, the old and new style needle bearings, you might see some of these older transaxles of this kind may have thicker needle bearings in some places than others, and I just put that picture there. Got a transmission range sensor here, and the transmission range sensor is digital, and I'm going to show you that at the end of the thing. We're going to start right now, and this is where the coolness comes in. This is the way the fluid's routed in park and neutral under 8 miles an hour. Now, this is pretty cool stuff. Now, your manual valve, who knows what that is? What is the manual valve connected to? The Prndl stick, PRNDL, right? There's nothing complicated about that. So basically, whenever you're got it in park and neutral, speed under 8 miles an hour, like if you're coasting, believe it or not, there's different stuff there apparently. But you got your pump here. It's basically picking up. You got a regulator that's going to keep your pressure from, you know, going where it shouldn't. And there's your torque converter regulator. Coming over here, got a solenoid switch valve up here. Everything that's dark is pressured up at this point. All right, and so there's your low reverse switch. I'm pretty well convinced there was an issue in that valve body out there with this low reverse switch on this one here, because whenever, you know, remember how when you had that thing up there, it would start going forward and then it would back up. But low reverse, the same clutch is applied in low and reverse. And so when that thing switches back and forth like it does, you're going to have issues with that. All right, so you got your vent reservoir, your temperature, you know, sensor here, and that kind of thing. So basically, some of these things basically have got a little mechanical temperature bimetal strip in them. Now look at this right here. This cool little thing across the bottom here is going to give you the little legend on what these mean. So if you've got this, what is that? Which one of these that match up with? Residual, right? All right, and then over here you got suction pressure. See that? Pulling it in from the pump. All right, and then here you got converter clutch on. It's 45 to 100 psi. This is giving you the pressures that are actually available at the places where this is various shading. Now let's go to neutral. We basically got it in neutral. It's going to be pretty much the same thing, except let me back up here again. All right, look at that. Except when you're in park and neutral under 8 miles an hour, and then over 8 miles an hour, see, you've lost this now. So it's looking at the speed, and it's doing things. What you mean there?
The AC quit on the little Dodge.
Oh, okay.
No rush.
All right, well, we'll make that. All right, so here we got this, the press is at 1500 RPM, by the way, that's your pressure. And look at your solenoids. The solenoids that are energized, and this is, I like this because it's a microcosm of what you find spread out over several other things on other ones. This one here is telling you that this particular solenoid is energized and none of the rest of them are. You got that? All right, and so basically this is giving you the little legend on what all of this stuff right here. That's low reverse. Now what's funny about that is that the OTC Genesis scan tool, if you pull up a code that's talking about low reverse, it'll say left rear. Because whoever typed that doesn't know what that we were talking about low reverse. Okay, now then, see, this gives you an idea of what's going on when you're in reverse. You got the Prndl stick in reverse. You clicked over here to the R range, and basically I wish that input A would go away. What's up with that? It's covering up part of my picture here, and I don't like that. But anyway, this is pressured up. This is a little ball. See the little ball where it is? I can roll back and forth in there and stop at the port. Okay, over here, and there's your low reverse. That's see the S, see that stuff up there? Let me see. LR, overdrive, switch. Is that a switch? Converter clutch, dribbler, vent. Why would we have a dribbler? What do you think we'd have a dribbler for, Brian Adams? Why would we need a dribbler?
So you're not traveling?
Huh? What about maybe to oil something? What about maybe to put a dribble oil on something to keep it lubricated? You think that might be important? Because of all the stuff that's going on. Also, you got the, this going to the torque converter regulator. And see everything else, the stuff that's really going to be happening is the stuff where the dark is. That's where most of the pressure is. That's line pressure. 175 to 235 Once again, that's at 1500 RPM. All right, lube pressure 5 to 40, you got residual and so on and so forth. All right, yeah. Reverse block. Now, why would we need reverse block? What happens if some knucklehead is going forward and accidentally decides to throw it in reverse?
Like that guy you were talking about?
Not good. Well, that's on a manual transmission.
Oh.
On an automatic transmission, they've got it so that if you're moving forward at past a certain speed, if you put it in reverse, it just won't engage reverse. Now, I will tell you that the Ford Taurus that I had a 95 Ford Taurus before I had this other one in Europe. And when you put that thing in reverse and tried to back up really, really fast, it would cut the fuel injectors out. It wouldn't let you back up over a certain speed and it would start cutting them out. But not every vehicle is like that. Eddie had a 98 Taurus, and I said, let's see if it would do it on his. And we got out in a great big parking lot, and I guess his would have kept on going until it got to 100 miles an hour in reverse. But my 95 model wouldn't do that. So a lot of times the people type in the algorithms in the engine controller, powertrain control ones that mess it up. All right, so basically, you can see what's going on here. Get used to this, because if you're looking at transmissions and you want to try to be fixing one, you need to be able to trace these down and say, you know, this solenoid here is still the only one that's energized right now. We got reverse block. We don't even have any fluid up here. Do you notice that? So that's got shift to reverse with speed over 8 miles an hour. See, if you're going over 8 miles an hour and you throw it in reverse, it's not going to let that happen. That's why it's concerned about 8 miles an hour, apparently. It's not going to spend a lot of time on that. Here's first gear. All right, we got it in drive. All right, and this valve right here, we're directing it over here in case we're going to need that whenever we get ready to. And here's, you got this little ball over here that's stopping that up, it's keeping pressure from going there. This one right here is feeding that. Basically, you got to track that. See, if this one here stops that from going to the underdrive, and that's overdrive. This is coming up this way, and you're going to the vents. There's 2 vents there. All that. So basically, you're looking over here at there's pressure right here, and pressure acts on the ends of these valves. By the way, you got to be watching for that. All right. So, and notice your low reverse switch is over on that side, and it's getting it going that way. All right. This is just look at here. We got these this is energized. The low reverse and the converter clutch are energized, and the 24 low reverse is energized. Those particular ones. All right. So what we're going to do. Line pressure here is 120 to 145. You're still at 1500, but line pressure has changed because you've changed to a different gear. You notice how line pressure is higher in reverse than it is first gear. If you look at the transmissions, all these transmissions, and you look at line pressure is usually higher in reverse than it is the other gears. And don't ask me why. I'm not going to try to pretend that I know. All right. So, but I mean, I know it typically is. None of these are energized here. That's second gear. What is that telling me? What if I have a situation where none of my solenoids will energize? What gear am I going to take off in? Second on this one. See that? None of the solenoids are energized. We're in second gear on that particular one. If you've got dead solenoids, something not feeding them, expect to take off in second gear. Of course, the manual valve and the other stuff is going to come into play too. But if none of those are energized, you're in second by default. If you're a lot of them though, and you are on target on most vehicles, because they'll be in high. If you kill the power going to the solenoids in the transmission, and none of them are working, you'll take off in high gear. And on Jeep Cherokees, you can shift it manually, but you can't, put it. Huh?
Colorado's, you can do the same thing.
Yeah.
Because when the speed sensor went out on it, it wouldn't shift it in high gear, but you could shift it out manually.
Yeah, you could. It's sort of a fail-safe. I mean, you may have to do it every time or whatever. Well, that's second gear. And see where we are right here. We got this fluid going everywhere you see. Now, if you know where your clutches are in this thing, you can tell if I've got pressure that drops off right here. When I'm in second gear, like I say, this is basically just with it, at 1500 RPM in second gear, driving along pretty close. All right. Now look what's happened here. Second gear, EMCC. Somebody needs to Google that. What's EMCC for me? Tell me what EMCC is. What is it talking about when it says EMCC? Brian's the Google master. It's all right. What do you think? What is the EMCC on a 4.1 TE transmission? What does it mean when you're looking at the schematic?
Electronic something convert clutch.
Yeah,
control.
it's gonna have something to do with the converter clutch. I always have the idea it's with the converter clutch not engaged. You know what I mean?
Hey, Rich,
Yeah.
now you were saying a while ago that the line pressure was higher in reverse. You think that could be because there's less clutches in reverse, so it put more pressure on, so it's less likely to slip?
That's one possibility, but that would seem odd in every transmission for it to be that way. But you may be right. You may have something there.
East Mississippi Community College.
Huh?
East Mississippi Community College.
All right. Also, I wanted to notice, just take a second up here. Look at the cooler. What's here?
Nothing.
Bypass in the cooler.
Electronically modulate.
If the cooler clogs up, there's a bypass that can enable it to bypass the cooler, and you still get fluid. See what I mean? If that cooler gets totally clogged up, there is a bypass right there that'll unseat that ball and all that. But anyway, here we go. I'm not going into this in great detail, but you can look at it and you can see what's going on. See that? Now, I will tell you this one is not quite as friendly as the one we looked at from the GM because it actually showed the clutch packs. You see what I'm saying? But this one here is basically almost like firing and following a wire schematic. Now this is lube pressure.
Why does the cooler look like it's grounded on one side?
What's that?
The cooler looks like it's grounded on one side.
That basically just means that it's going back into the pan.
Oh.
Let's go back into the sump. So when it leaves the torque converter, see there's your torque converter right there. And this, if you're used to looking at the GM ones, this one's a little trickier because you're not actually seeing what looks like the clutch packs drawn out. You know, and that's one of the things that makes it a little peculiar. There's your overdrive, there's your underdrive, there's your low reverse, you know.
Does every transmission have one of these drawn for them?
Yeah. I mean, you'll have to find it on some of them. It's easier to find on some of them than others, particularly in all data. This came directly out of all data.
If that cooler stops up, like, and the little ball moves, will it cause problems? Or
Well, the transmission will start running hotter because it ain't got no cooling. We were working, when I was working for Ed Davis over there at Enterprise years ago, they brought a Dodge Duster in there or something, or Plymouth Duster rather, and when Mike got up under there, got working on the transmission, somebody had just completely bypassed the cooler, and we're just running the transmission without a cooler. And then he immediately took care of that problem. He put a cooler back on it and everything. But they've been driving that one for a while without a cooler. I mean, it's not a good plan because it'll start boiling the fluid ultimately and start puking it out the vent and everything, you know. And the fluid changes properties whenever it gets really, really hot and starts gumming everything up. Like for instance, if you put your something behind your pickup or your car or whatever, and you towed something that was heavier than what you usually tow, and you heat the torque converter up, and heat the transmission up really hot, then you basically ought to probably change your fluid pretty quick because it'll start depositing varnish and stuff on those valves if you're not really careful. Anyway, we're just kind of bouncing over this really quick here. There's your, see there's your 3/4, there's your reverse, there's your, 1, 2, 3. So basically you got your converter clutch going on here. See that? What you got coming up here? All that pressure, 75 to 95, your line pressure is lower. And this direct gear, see how low it is down there? It's not nearly as high. Those two are energized. Overdrive and your low reverse are basically energized. Those solenoids are. But even though we don't have anything up here, see your low reverse switch is not doing anything. There's no pressure there. But just kind of get used to looking at these and kind of know what you're looking at. I'm not going to propose myself to be an expert on this particular transmission, but you can get the point I'm trying to make here. These are here for a reason. I love the way this was drawn though, because it's telling you even down here about your solenoids. The only one that's not here, your underdrive, is not fired up, but your overdrive, your low reverse, and your low reverse converter clutch is. And see, so you got solenoids on that. We're going to talk about those again in a second. We don't lack much. We're right through. And there's overdrive right there. Overdrive being the one where you're turning faster on the output than you are on the input. That gives you your better gas mileage. That's in your, obviously, in your overdrive range too.
So direct drive would be like 30 or 1-1.
That's right. It's straight. That's exactly right. And then there's your EMCC range. You found out what EMCC was?
Oh,
You probably got it. Okay. Okay. All right. Now see this right here. What's that mod? What's that mean? What's mod mean?
Modulated?
Yeah, it's basically not 100% lockup on the converter. It's basically starts out at 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. Now here's the thing. If you're modulating the torque converter and you got the wrong kind of oil in it, you'll feel something that feels like a surge, because that clutch won't slip smoothly. So I've run into that before. I can tell you a story about a brand spanking 89 Eagle Summit that we worked on that was surging like that. And I cleaned the injectors and it quit surging for 2 days, and then it came back and it turned out they wanted us to put a different kind of transmission fluid in it. When the shop foreman told me that after he talked to the people in New Orleans, I said, oh, that's funny. So we got some ATF plus 4 stuff poured in there, and all of that surging went away. And I had worked on it for 4 or 5 days trying to make it quit surging. I thought it was in the engine.
Electronically modulated converter clutch.
There you go. So it's modulated, right? There you go. Electronically modulated converter clutch. We're all smarter now than we were 5 minutes ago. Converter clutch on. That means it's not being modulated there. It's actually solidly locked. You got that? Now there's your wiring schematic for it. You got your transmission range sensor right there. You notice it's digital. Got 4 little, ones and zeros there that it's fighting with. You got your powertrain control module. And this up here is your transmission solenoid assembly. It's got switches and solenoids all built into the same thing. If you blow that fuse, what's going to happen? This is the transmission control module. The PCM is a different box on this one. Got me? All right, so be aware of that. All right. Transmission range sensor looks like that. Whenever these things are closed, this is a 1 and 0 thing. It's got a 4-digit binary code there that it's using. And these are oddball. They're not even showing you here. But if you put them in, I'll take that back. Well, I don't know, that one there is not like, the Ford one is drawn so that you can actually tell which ones are closed in which gear. They're not all closed all the time. They're closed at various different times. And there's a worksheet on that, so don't dodge that. Pressure switches are included in the solenoid pack. This is what the solenoid pack looks like. Up here, this is the solenoid pack right here. These are really cool because all of the solenoids on the outside of the transmission, you can change them real easy. Pressure switches and solenoids. This thing cost about $150 last time I bought one, maybe a little higher than now, maybe $250, I don't remember. But anyway, we've replaced a bunch of these. A lot of times if you pop one of those on there and you run some seafoam through it, you can straighten one out. I'm not trying to advocate shortcuts, but sometimes Granny can't afford anything else, you know what I mean? And we fix them like that. And you'll get a code for those sometimes. All right, we don't lack much here. Solenoids are included in the pack. Those are the solenoids. You got low reverse, 2-4 solenoid control, underdrive solenoid. This will come clearer as you study it a little closer. Here's your speed sensor. These speed sensors are plastic. They don't cost but about $30 a piece. They're fairly easy to change. You got to take some stuff out of there to get to them, but they do die. They will fail. And you can see them right here. Your output speed sensor and your input speed sensor are shown right up here on the schematic, and that's what they look like in the real world. And there's your solenoid pack, just like I held up and showed you right there. You can see it's the same thing I just held up. All right. And then basically your throttle position sensor is going to be, talking to the powertrain control module, and it ferries that over here. Looks to me like it's actually reading, both of them are reading off of that. Right? And that's the end of the slideshow. All right, did anybody get anything out of that at all, or did your eyes glaze over?
Yes.
Were you playing with your phone? Anything like that? All right then.